I didn't want the viewer to look at it like they're looking at it in a museum. I'm not shooting for Instagram kind of fame or something like that. I don't need like the super famous shot that everyone has taken already 1,000 times. Let's do this.
Kanpai.
Kanpai.
Introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Deniz Demir. I have been coming to Japan since 2015, but living here now for the last 6 years straight. I'm a portrait and street photographer, obviously based in Tokyo. And yeah, so I mean that's my full-time job now is doing photography here in Japan. Yeah, that's about it.
When did you start photography?
So I started photography actually like when I first arrived in Japan in 2015. Yeah.
Oh.
So when I arrived here, I was coming here on my first trip. I just thought I would buy myself like a semi-nice camera for the first time in my life, and I wasn't a photographer. I just thought like, oh, I'll just go and take some nice like touristy photos, you know, with my camera, and I naturally started to, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, but I wanted to start taking photos of the people here. I had almost no interest in taking photos of like, you know, the more touristy, iconic kind of stuff. And I just started taking photos of like people in their everyday kind of, you know, everyday life. And for some reason that just was something that interested me. And then I became a bit addicted. And then I just wanted to keep coming back to Japan. I was from Canada. And I just wanted to keep coming back to Japan and doing more photography here. And so I did that for the first 5 years, I guess, like up until 2020. And I was coming here, you know, probably about 2 times a year, sometimes between 2 to 3 months each time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so my final year before I moved here, I was here for 6 months on a tourist visa. You know, I would go to Canada for 3 months, come here for 3 months, go back to Canada for 3 months, come back here for 3 months. But I quickly kind of understood that that was not a good lifestyle, you know, like, and I had to choose one, so Japan won.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
so I chose Japan. So the way I kind of look at it is that like I come from a street photography background, so that's my primary, that was my primary motivation, I guess, like to kind of, you know, continue into photography. So I did that for the first probably 5 years of my photography. I never took a portrait in my life.
Oh, really?
I was just doing street photography.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never took photos of people. I guess I never really thought about it, and it wasn't like my driving interest. And but then things happened, and then, you know, I started kind of have an interest for doing portrait work. And I started to, basically I would just kind of like have a street photography scene in my head, and I would just put people into it, you know? So like my portrait style, I think comes from that background.
Oh, really?
Comes from a street photography background, and now I just put people into that frame, if I can kind of make sense of that, you know?
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's like more, yeah, I think a lot of people might look at my photography now and say like, oh, he's a portrait photographer,
Right.
you know, but actually I'm more of a street photographer as my roots, and than I am a portrait photographer.
Cool.
Portrait photography is more in the last like 5 years, you know, that I've been kind of doing that, so
Nice.
yeah. I know Nuts knows all these streets. That's why I call it the Rat Kingdom. You know, welcome to the Rat Kingdom. Yeah, I think in my head I had always thought that that was a big one actually, and I think he's still around. Oh, there he is, scurrying around right there. Yeah. He's right there, over there, right there, in that little hole he went into. So actually it was funny because when I first put together the zine, the first draft, I showed it to you, and I had, it was my first time doing anything like this, so I had sectioned it off into like, you know, this is my streets section and this is my portrait section, and you gave me the idea to actually like kind of mix everything together. And so I went back and I kind of redesigned everything, and I'm really happy I did, and I'm happy for your advice as well. So this way I kind of, I blended everything together, and I think that, you know, my street and portrait style really do fit together, you know. So, you know, this can be a street photo, not necessarily a model photo, you know, and maybe vice versa. You know, this can also be a portrait, you know, if I'm putting someone here. So I already have that sort of like kind of vision in my head when I'm making the photo. And so when I was kind of creating the magazine, I think that it all kind of blends in together in that same sense. So again, you have like the street scenes here and a portrait, which can be like a street photograph as well, you know. So same sort of concept, you know. And a lot of the times I try to, you know, also kind of match everything in terms of, you know, color as well, because color for me is very important in my work as well. So, you know, selecting photos and, you know, creating a design that really flows together as well.
Which is your favorite photo in this Taiwan version?
I really like this photo actually, that we just landed on it, because it's like, for me, it's like really good timing, you know. So like it was a portrait shoot that I was shooting with a model friend of mine in a hotel, and so she chose a hotel, and she wanted to I had to kind of almost tell her to like calm down, because she was like almost coming right out. I was like, the last thing I want to do is have her fall, you know. So but yeah, so she's like hanging out the window here, and right at the same time the cops are kind of going right through here as well. So it's kind of like a mix of a street photography, street photograph, and a portrait shot, you know, but it just kind of capturing that moment, you know. I think that works really well, you know. But probably my favorite photo, I mean, I really like this spread, you know. I like how this spread works here, you know. So you're showing that sort of like, it just kind of like really bleeds into each other, you know.
Two different photos.
Two different photos. Two different photos, but they really kind of work well together as a spread, you know, as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and there you go, right there. Our buddies. Yeah.
Then how about Hong Kong?
So yeah, Hong Kong. So this is volume 2. Hong Kong, just a totally different vibe, man. Yeah, it's like obviously everyone knows Hong Kong for the neons, you know, and but I wanted to kind of capture it in. I mean, obviously this was the first time that I'd been there, so I'll be honest, I didn't really pay attention to a lot of what other photographers were shooting there. So, you know, maybe some of the locations are very iconic. I still included them in the book here. But yeah, so I mean, I wanted to include like kind of, you know, stuff like this, you know, like that was like more very random, you know, this is like a goldfish tank, you know, for example, you know, like here. Yeah, so and you'll get a lot of like kind of really cool street scenes in here as well, very Hong Kong vibe. You know, I think a lot of people kind of have that sort of like, I'm very inspired by Wong Kar-wai as well as a film director, and he, you know, a lot of his movies, I kind of always envisioned when I was going there, I was like, maybe he shot a scene here, maybe, you know, like, and so like I kind of had that little bit of like inspiration, you know, when I was shooting as well. I really like this set with one of my model friends there as well. A lot of neons, but also a lot of action, you know, a lot of energy in the shots as well, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. You know, this is a very iconic kind of location as well. I wanted to include that there as well. But again, like I said, like I'd like to fill the whole frame. So even like, for example, like, you know, just cutting out this like one little section with like, you know, the woman working in a noodle shop, you know, and just kind of filling it up here. But, you know, having all these kind of street scenes, having the lone figure walking here. And this is a portrait shot as well with my model friend. You know, a massage parlor. This is very Hong Kong for me. I mean, this is my first impressions of Hong Kong.
I like that pages. Good sensei. Looks like a collage. So if you don't tell there are many photos in these pages, maybe some people will think one image.
I think so. I think so. But this is like, you know, probably 6 different images, you know, all put together, you know, as well. So yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like it's exactly what Hong Kong for me is, right? It's like a big mix and mess of so many different things, you know. So that's what I wanted to show. I didn't want it to be like, how can I say, like I didn't want the viewer to look at it like they're looking at it in a museum or like in a, you know, art gallery. You know, because I found that style maybe is a little bit too stuffy, too pretentious maybe. I wanted it to be like what I see. When I went to Hong Kong, I just saw noise, pollution everywhere, you know, like neons everywhere, and like a mix of so many different things. And so I wanted to show the viewer the same sort of vibe, you know, as well. Yeah. And then I had like a mix of like, you know, some different like sort of portraits of like local residents, you know, as well. You know, this kind of stuff. I really like this photo here as well, you know. And this one, everyone was really, when I showed at the Tokyo streets, everyone really liked that photo because he almost looks a little bit dead, but it's actually like I shot him taking a nap in a van, you know, and he had all these, and I didn't use any Photoshop or anything, but they're just all the reflections from all the like shining on his van window as well, you know. So when actually, if people go to my Instagram, they'll see that like I don't, when I create carousels, I almost don't create any of my carousels as like one photo after another photo after another photo. It's almost the same style as my magazines. I create it more as a magazine layout, so it's more like not like I don't decide by frame. I decide it as 10 frames as one long frame. And then, of course, Instagram splits that up into, you know, 10 different frames. So you have to swipe. So sometimes you might see half of a photo on one frame and then half on the other, but I don't care. I'm not creating it to be like, you know, one photo per, you know, per frame. I'm creating it to be like kind of more of a visual experience. So when people swipe through, they get this sort of experience, you know? Yeah. I want it to be more like kind of a magazine in that sense, yeah.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that you're posting like that.
Oh yeah. Almost. That's why I'm so lazy to post on Instagram, because it takes me a long time.
Yeah, I see.
You know, so it takes me a long time to create that kind of style. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much all my posts are like that. You know, and they've been like that for quite some time now. Yeah. You know, I think people that maybe want to do the one picture on one page kind of idea think that they have to have like the most amazing photo, you know, and that's like the photo I'm going to put in the art gallery, you know, you know, but that's not the concept here. Like for me, like that's like, you know, like I said, it's more about how I can make all my photos blend together. And if you think of it from that perspective, I think then you can easily kind of start to put photos together, because like you'll see in here that some photos are actually like quite small, you know, compared to like other photos. That doesn't mean that they're less important. It just means that, like, you know, I'm creating a vibe around that spread. So some photos are going to be smaller, some are going to be bigger. Some will have more importance on the page, some will have less importance on the page. But it doesn't mean that, like, you know, one photo is better or the other photo is better. It just means how they all fit together. That's the way I kind of think of it, if that makes sense. I don't know, but, you know, yeah, like I said, I'm not shooting for Instagram kind of fame or something like that. I don't need like the super famous shot that everyone has taken already 1,000 times. For me, it's it's more a collection of like of the photos I think fit well together.
Nice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Kanpai.
Hey.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Perfect.
Good?
Yeah, super good.
Yeah?